DOC supports new methods of pest control such as self-resetting traps and research. For now, biodegradable 1080 is the best tool available to save our birds.
Next day, looks like we have caught something. It looks like a stoat. How's it going, guys? Today's video is going to be about an alternative to 1080 poison. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what 1080 is, there's heaps of videos on YouTube that show the reasons we don't like it, the birds that it kills, and the cruel way it kills animals and all of that. So if you want to find out about that, just YouTube that.
For those of you that want to know what 1080 is or why there's so many people that don't like it, we'll link a few different videos in the down bar below and you can have a look there.
Okay, we're just going to look at a constructive way of looking at an alternative. We believe there's better ways of doing it. 1080 is a very sort of lazy way of doing things. It's a lazy way of controlling pests. Okay, so we got a pest problem. What should we do? We'll just drop a whole heap of poison out of a helicopter. We won't have to walk around and trap them ourselves. So yeah, I think a lot of it comes from people who don't really know how a professional trapping operation works. So that's what we're going to be doing today, just a bit of filming on how quickly we can trap possums, how quickly we can pluck them, covering the costs at no cost to the taxpayer, and a few other trapping options for stoats and rats and stuff like that. So basically when we kill a possum for fur recovery, it's a very humane way of doing it. Basically we stun the possum, so we knock it unconscious instantly with a stick or whatever. So from that point on the possum doesn't feel anything. It's all unconscious obviously, and then we bleed the possum with a knife. So yeah, we'll do that soon. Very humane in comparison to 1080. Obviously with 1080 an animal can die a very slow death, very painful death. Alright, so there's a lot of information out there and a lot of people saying that possum trapping isn't as effective as 1080. That's possum fur recovery. People saying that, you know, fur trappers want a lot of possums and they don't get the numbers down as low as 1080. I wouldn't listen to that, that's not true. A lot of that comes from basically the people saying that don't understand what a professional trapping operation looks like. They don't really understand our methods that we use. So yeah, that's what we're going to show you today. That's what we do for a living, plucking possums all day. So we'll go up, there's a possum up here, start of our trap line, and yeah, we'll show you guys what we do. Alright, so we're just going to kill a possum. If you're not okay with seeing that sort of thing, then just skip forward a few minutes, obviously. So we've got a possum here. so that possum will take a little while to fur will soften up on it so you can pluck it. So in the meantime, we want to use our time wisely, so we set our trap while we're waiting for that possum's fur to soften up. That trap is all set and ready to go for tomorrow. And then we just pluck our possum, so pretty simple operation. Okay, a lot of people who do possuming part-time pluck their possums on the ground. So yeah, I wouldn't advise that. You'd get quite a sore back doing it that way. Yeah, we'll probably do some videos in the next month or so, just to, if you're interested in getting into possum trapping, we'll do a breakdown of what you need to know and all that. So just keep an eye out on our page and those videos will come up. Alright, so an average possum, this possum here, it's at summertime or springtime, so it's not going to be a heap of fur on it. We'll probably get about $6 or $7 of fur off this possum here. Basically when we're trapping full time, I like to aim for 10 possums per hour, so I'll pluck 10 possums, reset the trap and walk between the traps. Do that 10 times per hour, and that's sort of the rate that I like to work at. So, you know, $7 a possum, it's not a bad hourly rate if you're getting 10 an hour. And resetting for the next day as well. So yeah, sweet, that's possum plucked. That didn't take long at all. Everyone can pluck a possum, it's pretty easy job. That possum's got a lot of fur on it as well, looks like it's got quite a good skin under there. I think there's definitely alternatives to 1080. I think there are ways to get stoats and rats in conjunction with getting the possum fur. So when we get this possum fur, we're offsetting all our costs and we're making a profit from it. So on one hand we've got DOC and Animal Health Board, 2B3, all those people basically spending taxpayers' money, farm levy money, on killing possums in ineffective ways that basically don't recover any costs. They just waste the possum. And pretty much that's why there's a lot of possums in New Zealand, I think, because they're not using possum fur as a way of offsetting costs, so they're not covering the areas that they want to cover, because basically 1080 is too expensive, which isn't surprising. So what I think they could do is we could put a bounty on stoats, or have some sort of system where the possum trappers which are in the bush, already in there, already walking up and down ridges all day, if you paid them a little bit extra, maybe after they've got all the possums, you could say, okay, how about putting out these good-natured traps for rats? How about setting stoat traps while you're trapping? You know, we'll pay you a little bit extra for that, and I think you could probably cover the whole of New Zealand quite easily using that method. But for some reason no one's doing it. For some reason Doc don't want to use possum fur as a way of getting rid of pests. I'm not sure why. It doesn't really make sense. Yeah, it's...
It could be another good income for the country too.
Yeah, exactly. There's about... well, there's a lot of estimates on possum numbers. 70 million or 30 million. Let's say if there's 70 million possums in New Zealand, that's about $560 million worth of possum fur. It's a pretty big industry. There's a lot of potential there. Too easy. Next trap. Alright, so we've just stopped for lunch here. About halfway through our trap line. And yeah, I thought we'd just go over a few things. When you're possum trapping, it's quite easy to catch stoats. You can set like a meat trap, so you put a piece of chicken netting over a normal possum trap, so you can use normal possum traps, put a piece of chicken netting over them and bait that with a piece of possum meat off your trap line, so everything's pretty much already there. And that's a really effective way of catching stoats, and by putting chicken netting over it, you're stopping any birds from feeding on it, like moorporks and harrier hawks and falcons and things like that, which often get poisoned by 1080 because there's a lot of dead possums lying around and they like to feed on them. Right, another thing that I reckon could be really good for controlling stoats, so a real effective way would be to use dogs. If you trained dogs to hunt stoats, I think that would be really effective. My dogs have killed heaps of stoats, they've even killed ferrets. Good you! That would be really good if Doc could maybe get onto some stoat dogs or ferret dogs or whatever.
Rat and mice as well.
Yeah, well, rat dogs are really effective as well. And that would be a way more effective way of targeting stoats directly. I mean, you can spend hours, people spend hours out there trapping stoats, walking trap lines, and they only catch one or two. You could go into a massive area with a dog, and a dog will find those stoats. If it's trained to, it will find them and it will kill them. And that's a far more effective way of doing it, I think. Another thing that people often say is that 1080 is good because it can get into inaccessible areas. A lot of areas people say you can't trap. I don't really believe that, because basically anywhere you can get with a helicopter with 1080, you can drop trappers in with a helicopter just the same. That's pretty much what we've done for the last 5 years full time, is flying into remote areas, and we stay in the bush for 2 weeks, sometimes a month at a time, and just trap, and then we'll fly all our fur out. and the amount of fur we get makes that helicopter trip worthwhile. So we pay for the helicopter and we recover our costs because we're trapping a lot of possums and we're getting a lot of fur. So yeah, there's nowhere really, I don't believe, that is truly inaccessible for trapping. Alrighty, so there's a few other points. One thing that people say that isn't quite true is that, you know, the possums, you can't get them down to the low enough numbers. Compared with 1080, basically the way that we work our trap lines is that we'll be trapping, obviously we'll set up our original trap line. Our traps might be quite close together if there's a dense possum population, so they might be only 30 metres apart to begin with. And then what we'll do is, as those traps stop catching possums, we'll pull those traps out. So, you know, after a period of time, we'll be left with where we once maybe had 100 traps or 200 traps, we'll then only have maybe 20 traps, which are still catching quite a high percentage, but if we'd left them all there, it wouldn't be viable to do it. So basically it's kind of like a game of snake. So we'll move you kind of pull out the traps that aren't catching, so you're sort of thinning your line out, and then you'll move them to the front of your line. So you're kind of thinning your line out and you're only keeping the best traps, and that way you get to sort of find out the very best spots to have your traps. And sometimes I've ended up with my traps really far apart, sort of 400, 500 metres apart, sometimes a K apart, my traps, but those 1 or 2 traps catch a possum every single night, and it's just where the possums are crossing over ridges, through saddles, and usually places like that. Sweet as, next trap. DOC and TB Free and Federated Farmers and all those sorts of organisations often say that fur recovery doesn't get the possum numbers down to the level that they need them to be at. So I read something the other day that said that TB Free need to get possum numbers down to the point where you only catch 5 possums per 100 traps. Now, that doesn't quite mean a lot because there's a lot of variables that determine your trap catch percentage. So how far apart your traps are, what sort of lure you're using, whether you have to raise your traps, yeah, how you're trapping, where you're putting them. So that can determine, you know, your percentage. So saying that, you know, a broad thing like that is pretty misleading, I think. Another thing is that they're sort of assuming that all possum trappers are only going to use 100 traps. Now, I've set trap lines of 300 traps in the past, so you know, and at that same percentage, even if you were only catching 5 possums per 100 traps, you'd be catching 15 possums per day, which is about a kilo of fur, which is over $100 a day. So, you know, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about fur recovery and how effective it can be. So, some of you might be wondering why I'm not using a machine to pluck these possums. Plucking machines are quite effective. The only downside to them is portable possum pluckers are quite heavy, and so they'll be petrol powered, petrol motors. And basically the reason why I hand pluck all my possums is just to keep it simple, and because of most of the places that we trap in are pretty inaccessible, pretty steep, and pretty uneconomical to try and carry a possum plucking machine around. You certainly can't get a motorbike into these areas. So yeah, basically that's why we hand pluck all our possums. You can get pretty effective at plucking possums by hand. Oh, the camera stopped working. Anyhow, so yeah, once you get good at hand plucking, you can pluck over 100 possums a day quite easily. Done that plenty of times. So yeah, she's pretty good money. Hand plucking's really good because you can, once you're good at hand plucking, you can pluck a possum anywhere. You don't have to carry a plucking machine around. The fur's nice and light to carry, so that's all you have to carry around. Bring your hands with you and you're away. And as we said at the start of our video, we'll be doing some more videos on how to trap possums, how to pluck possums, everything you need to know basically if you want to get into fur harvesting. If you want to get into fur recovery, it's a pretty good thing to get into. If we get enough people into it, I'd say they'll be having a pretty hard time justifying 1080 anymore, to be honest. So